An ancient book exists that no one alive can read. For centuries, its pages have whispered secrets in a language lost to time, defying every attempt to crack its code. This is just one of the countless enigmas left behind by past civilizations, puzzles so complex they continue to stump our brightest minds. We are embarking on a journey through 30 of history's most baffling ancient riddles. You will uncover tales of impossible machinery, vanished cities, and artifacts that challenge everything we know about the past. What hidden truth lies within a map that seems to show a continent it should not know? How did a society move stones heavier than elephants across miles of rugged terrain? What single question has haunted humanity since we first looked to the stars? By the end, you will possess a collection of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Which ancient secret do you believe holds the most astonishing truth? The Voynich Manuscript is a book that should not exist. Crafted on fine vellum sometime in the early 15th century, it is filled from cover to cover with elegant, looping handwriting in a language that matches no known alphabet on Earth. For more than a century, professional codebreakers, linguists, and mathematicians have tried to pry open its secrets, and all have failed. They have applied every tool of modern analysis, from wartime decryption techniques to complex algorithms, yet the text remains stubbornly, perfectly unreadable. It is a locked door for which no one has found the key. The illustrations inside only deepen the mystery. The book is divided into sections, each more bizarre than the last. One section is filled with drawings of plants that are utterly alien, with leaves, roots, and flowers that do not correspond to any known species. Are these fantastical inventions, or did the author document a lost world of flora? Another section contains intricate astronomical charts showing celestial bodies and zodiac-like symbols in arrangements that make no sense to modern astronomers. There are also pages depicting dozens of nude women bathing in or connected by a complex network of pipes and vessels containing a strange green fluid, a scene that has been called the biological section, though its true meaning is anyone's guess. This has, of course, spawned countless theories about its origin. Some believe it is an elaborate medieval hoax, a nonsensical book created to defraud a wealthy patron. Others argue it is a secret codebook for alchemists, hiding the formula for the philosopher's stone in plain sight. There are those who propose it is a medical text from a lost culture, or even a message from an extraterrestrial intelligence. The most tantalizing clue came just a few years ago when one researcher suggested the script might be a form of proto-Romance, a precursor to languages like Italian and Spanish. But this theory, like all the others, has not led to a full translation. The manuscript resists all labels, existing in a category of its own. It is a beautiful, frustrating ghost of a book, holding its silence across 6 centuries. What incredible knowledge, or what magnificent deception, lies waiting on those cryptic pages? While a book of unreadable text is one kind of mystery, an ancient shipwreck held a puzzle of a completely different nature. In the year 1900, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon the rotting timbers of a Roman-era cargo ship. Among the statues and treasures recovered from the seabed was a lump of corroded bronze and wood, so encrusted and fragile it seemed like little more than junk. For decades, it sat in a museum storage room, its true significance completely overlooked. It was only when an archaeologist noticed intricate gear wheels peeking through the cracks that the world realized this lump was in fact the most technologically complex object to survive from the ancient world. They called it the Antikythera Mechanism. This was not just a simple tool. It was an intricate clockwork device, a sophisticated analog computer made from at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, all housed in a wooden case. By turning a hand crank on the side, the user could set a date and the machine would calculate the positions of the sun, the moon, and the known planets. It could predict lunar and solar eclipses with remarkable accuracy, and it even modeled the irregular orbit of the moon. The device was so advanced that nothing of comparable complexity would appear again until the mechanical astronomical clocks of 14th century Europe. This single artifact was over 1,000 years ahead of its time. So who could have built such a marvel, and for what purpose? The inscriptions on the mechanism itself point towards its origins in ancient Greece, possibly Corinth or Syracuse. This has led some scholars to wonder if the genius behind it was connected to the legendary inventor Archimedes himself. The purpose remains a subject of fierce debate. Was it a navigational aid for sailors plotting a course by the stars? Was it a tool for farmers and city planners, an intricate calendar for marking agricultural cycles and religious festivals? Or was it a philosophical demonstration, a teaching device built to showcase the grandeur of a clockwork universe governed by mathematical laws? To truly appreciate its brilliance, you have to see it in motion. Detailed computer animations have reconstructed its inner workings, revealing a breathtaking dance of precision engineering. Small dials would have spun, pointers would have moved across engraved scales, and a tiny, painted moon would have cycled through its phases. It was a portable cosmos, a miniature universe you could hold in your hands. Its very existence forces us to completely rethink the technological landscape of the ancient world. What other wonders, now lost to rust and time, once existed? How much knowledge vanished in the fires of libraries and the depths of the sea? The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a silent, profound question mark against our assumptions of historical progress. Deep within the lush river deltas of Costa Rica, another ancient mystery lies half buried in the earth. Hundreds of stone spheres, some as small as a baseball and others taller than a person, dot the landscape. Carved from a hard igneous rock called gabbro, these objects are unnervingly perfect. Many are so precisely spherical that their measurements deviate by less than a few millimeters, a level of accuracy that seems impossible for a pre-Columbian society without metal tools or the wheel. How did ancient artisans achieve such geometric perfection, and more importantly, why? The local legends offer tantalizing, if unverifiable, answers. Some tales say the spheres are the petrified cannonballs of gods who waged epic battles in the sky. Others claim they are relics from the lost continent of Atlantis, placed as navigational aids for a forgotten seafaring culture. A more grounded theory suggests they were powerful status symbols for village chiefs, their size and quantity directly reflecting an individual's wealth and influence. The sheer effort required to carve and move a single sphere, let alone hundreds, certainly supports this idea of social display. Imagine the immense labor, the days spent grinding stone against stone with sand and water to create just one of these massive orbs. Then came the even greater challenge of transporting it miles through dense jungle and across rivers to its final resting place. Archaeologists have pieced together a likely method involving log sledges and ropes, but the complete process remains a subject of speculation. Perhaps the most compelling theory positions the spheres as a sophisticated astronomical calendar. Some of the larger spheres have been found arranged in precise alignments, pointing to the positions of the sun and stars during solstices and equinoxes. They could have been a massive, permanent observatory carved in stone, allowing an ancient society to track the seasons for agriculture and ceremony. Yet, without any written records from the people who made them, every explanation is just an educated guess. The creators of the spheres left behind no carvings, no diagrams, and no instructions. They left only the stones themselves, silent and perfect, scattered in clearings and riverbeds as if waiting for a question we have not yet learned how to ask. From the hidden jungles of Costa Rica, we travel to the barren plains of southern Peru, a desert canvas for one of humanity's most ambitious and perplexing artistic statements. Scratched into the dark, stony surface of the Nazca Desert are hundreds of enormous geoglyphs, lines and figures so vast they can only be truly comprehended from the sky. Stretching for miles across the arid plateau, these creations include a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a sinuous monkey with a coiled tail, a massive spider, and a strange humanoid figure the locals call the astronaut. For centuries, these drawings remained a secret, their full scale and beauty hidden from the very people who made them. It was only with the advent of airplanes in the 20th century that the world below revealed its breathtaking art gallery. The central question is as profound as the lines are large. Why would a civilization without any means of flight create art it could never see? One of the most enduring theories suggests the lines formed a giant astronomical calendar. Certain long lines may point directly to the sun's position on the horizon during the summer and winter solstices, turning the entire desert into a celestial observatory. The animal figures might have represented constellations, mapping the heavens onto the earth for ritual purposes. Another compelling idea is that the lines were sacred pathways. The Nazca people may have walked along these precise routes during religious ceremonies, a physical journey meant to connect them with their gods, perhaps to plead for water in an unforgiving landscape. The figures could have been spiritual symbols, offerings to deities who they believed watched from above. This, of course, has fueled more speculative ideas, including the provocative suggestion that the lines were landing strips or signals for visitors from other worlds. Yet the archaeological evidence points to a far more human, though no less impressive, explanation. Researchers have demonstrated that the Nazca people could have created these masterpieces with simple tools, wooden stakes, and cordage. By driving stakes into the ground to mark key points and using ropes to trace perfect curves and straight lines, small teams could have scaled up a small model into a colossal desert drawing. They simply removed the dark, sun-baked top layer of stones to reveal the lighter, sandy soil beneath, creating a stunning contrast. The precision required for this process is staggering. A single mistake in measurement, multiplied over a distance of miles, would have distorted the figures beyond recognition. The fact that they remain so perfectly formed after 2,000 years is a testament to their skill and planning. To see them from the air is to witness a paradox, a message written on the earth meant for eyes in the sky. Were they a desperate prayer to the gods, a complex map of the cosmos, or a declaration of identity etched into the land for all time? The desert holds its silence, and the lines remain, an indelible question mark drawn across the sands of Peru. While the Nazca Lines are a mystery of art and astronomy, another ancient riddle speaks directly to our deepest desire for lost riches. Among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of ancient Jewish texts found in clay jars, one stands completely apart. It is not made of fragile parchment, but of metal. This is the Copper Scroll, and it is not a religious treatise but a detailed inventory of treasure. The text, painstakingly engraved onto thin sheets of copper, lists 64 different caches of gold and silver, along with precious incense and other valuables. The described hoard is almost unimaginably vast, detailing many thousands of talents of silver and gold, a fortune that would be worth hundreds of millions in today's currency. The instructions are maddeningly specific, yet utterly cryptic. It describes hiding places like in the ruin that is in the valley of Achor, under the large stone reservoir, or in the cistern under the wall of the eastern fountain. Generations of treasure hunters armed with shovels and this 2,000-year-old map have scoured the arid landscape of modern-day Israel and Jordan, following these clues to the letter. They have dug at the base of ancient aqueducts, searched beneath ruined public baths, and excavated caves near Jericho. Yet not a single piece of this legendary treasure has ever been found. This complete lack of success has fueled a fierce debate. Was this a literal inventory of real wealth, perhaps the hidden treasury of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, smuggled away before the Roman siege? Or was the scroll something else entirely, a work of religious fiction or a symbolic text listing spiritual rather than material treasures? The very medium of copper suggests the author intended the message to last, unlike the perishable parchment of the other scrolls. This was a record meant to endure. The locations, however, are described with a kind of local knowledge that would be pointless for a purely symbolic text. They reference landmarks, pools, and buildings that would have been familiar to people at the time, implying a real hiding place for a real treasure. The greatest frustration lies in the scroll's final, tantalizing clue. It states that a duplicate of this document exists with even more precise details and an explanation of the treasure's nature. That second scroll has never been found, so the hunt continues, a modern-day quest driven by an ancient metallic whisper. Is the treasure still out there, buried deep in a forgotten cistern, waiting for the right pair of eyes to read the map correctly? Or was it found and looted centuries ago, leaving behind only a cryptic set of directions to an empty vault? The copper scroll offers no easy answers, only the enduring allure of a promise etched in metal. The legend of a sunken city speaks to a fear as deep as the ocean itself. More than 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Plato first told the story of a mighty empire called Atlantis. He described it as an island nation larger than Asia and Libya combined, a utopian society of immense wealth and advanced technology. Its people were great engineers and navigators, but over time they grew corrupt and arrogant. As punishment from the gods, the entire island was swallowed by the sea in one terrible day and night of earthquakes and floods, vanishing forever beneath the waves. Plato presented this story not as a historical fact, but as a moral fable, a warning about the dangers of hubris and the fall of civilizations. Yet his vivid description was so compelling that it launched the greatest treasure hunt in human history. For centuries, explorers and scholars have tried to find the real location of this lost world. The search has spanned the entire globe, with theories placing Atlantis in the Mediterranean Sea near the island of Santorini, which was devastated by a massive volcanic eruption around the year 1600 BCE. Others argue it was in the Caribbean or even Antarctica, suggesting that shifting poles could have buried a once temperate civilization under miles of ice. Some point to the mudflats of southern Spain, while more fringe ideas suggest it was a remnant of a lost continent in the mid-Atlantic. The problem is a complete absence of proof. Despite decades of searching with sonar, satellite imagery, and deep-sea submersibles, no definitive trace of a sunken city matching Plato's description has ever been found. The ruins discovered on the ocean floor are all natural formations, and every proposed site on land lacks that one crucial piece of evidence, a clear inscription or artifact that says, "This is Atlantis." So why does this legend hold such power over us? It serves as a perfect blank canvas for our imagination, a place where we can project our own visions of a perfect society and its spectacular downfall. It allows us to ponder the fragility of our own world, to ask if our civilization could one day become just a story, a cautionary tale for a future generation. The lost city is more than a place, it is an idea, a ghost that haunts our collective memory, asking us what we might find if the oceans one day gave up their secrets. Standing stones in endless rows form a silent army across the French countryside. This is the Carnac alignments in Brittany, a prehistoric monument of staggering scale. More than 3,000 megaliths were erected here, arranged with meticulous precision into parallel lines that stretch for kilometers. Walking among them is an overwhelming experience, a journey through a forest of granite where every stone is a question. Who commanded such a project, and what powerful need drove them to move these colossal weights into such perfect, mysterious order? The sheer labor involved is almost beyond comprehension. Each stone, some weighing many tons, was quarried, transported, and set upright by a society that left no written records to explain their actions. The most prominent theory suggests this was a gigantic astronomical observatory, a stone computer built to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Certain key stones align perfectly with the solstice sunrises, while others may have pointed toward significant lunar standstills. The entire site could have been a celestial calendar, allowing its builders to predict seasons, plan harvests, and mark sacred dates with incredible accuracy. Others believe it was a vast religious complex, a temple without a roof where processions moved between the towering rows for rituals we can only imagine. The stones might have marked territorial boundaries or sacred pathways connecting the world of the living with the realm of the gods. A more recent and quite fascinating theory proposes the stones functioned as an early earthquake detector. The way they are planted in the ground, some researchers argue, could have made the entire alignment sensitive to seismic vibrations, acting as a massive warning system for the community. Local folklore, however, offers a more magical explanation entirely. The legend says these are the remains of a Roman legion turned to stone by the wizard Merlin. As the story goes, the soldiers were pursuing local villagers when the enchanter stepped in, freezing them in their tracks for all eternity. It is a poetic tale that adds a rich layer of myth to the stark archaeological puzzle. To truly grasp the ambition of Karnak, you have to see it from above. The scale becomes clear, the patterns emerging from the landscape like lines on a circuit board. Imagine graphics overlaying the paths of celestial bodies, showing how the sun and moon would have risen and set in perfect alignment with specific stones. This was not a haphazard collection of rocks, it was a deliberate, sophisticated, and monumental undertaking. What knowledge was so vital that it required a landscape to be rewritten in stone? The alignments stand in silent testimony, a code written not on parchment, but across the earth itself. But what if the stones of Karnak were not just aligned with the stars, but powered by them? A discovery from ancient Mesopotamia suggests the unthinkable, that our ancestors might have harnessed a force we consider uniquely modern. In the 1930s, workers excavating a 2,000-year-old site near Baghdad uncovered a most peculiar object. It was a simple clay jar about the size of a man's fist, but inside was a carefully sealed arrangement, a copper cylinder housing a solid iron rod. The materials were separated by an asphalt plug, which also served as a stopper for the jar. To the untrained eye, it was just an odd ancient container, but to one German archaeologist, it looked like something else entirely. It looked like a battery. The theory is as elegant as it is shocking. If this jar were filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, the electrolyte would have allowed a chemical reaction to occur between the copper and the iron. This would create a small electrical potential, a tiny but measurable electric current flowing from the iron rod to the copper cylinder. Replicas built by researchers have proven it works, producing just over 1 volt of electricity, enough to generate a faint tingle or a very weak glow in a small light bulb. So what possible use could such a weak current have served 2 millennia ago? One compelling idea is electroplating. Artisans could have used a series of these batteries to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto lesser metals, gifting statues or jewelry with a brilliant, precious finish without using solid gold. Another, more speculative theory suggests a medical or religious application. The gentle shock could have been used in healing rituals or to create a mysterious, divine sensation for worshippers in a temple, a literal spark of the gods felt by the faithful. Yet, many mainstream archaeologists remain deeply skeptical. They point out that no wires or conductors were found with the so-called battery. No ancient texts describe anything resembling electrical theory or its practical use. The primary counter-argument is far more mundane, that the jar was simply a secure storage vessel for important religious or magical scrolls. The asphalt seal would have protected the precious papyrus or parchment inside from moisture and insects, while the iron and copper components might have been the scroll's protective case, their materials chosen for symbolic rather than conductive properties. The debate hinges entirely on intent. We know the device could generate electricity, but we have no proof that it ever did. Was this an ancient power cell, a forgotten spark of technological genius? Or is it just a modern idea projected onto a perfectly ordinary, if strangely constructed, ancient jar? The artifact sits in a museum, silent and inert, holding its charge not of electricity, but of tantalizing, unresolved possibility. A chart drawn in 1513 holds a coastline that should have been invisible to its creator. The Peru map, compiled by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Peru, is a stunningly detailed world map that includes the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Yet its most baffling feature lies at the very bottom, a landmass that many researchers argue is the continent of Antarctica, depicted not under its miles-thick ice sheet, but as it would appear with a clear coastal outline. This is a geological impossibility for the 16th century, as Antarctica's true coastline was only mapped in the 20th century using modern seismic equipment. The map's own notes deepen the mystery, with Peru himself crediting his work to older source maps, including some he claimed dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. Did he have access to ancient charts compiled by a seafaring civilization with knowledge of a world we thought was undiscovered? Skeptics offer a more conventional explanation. They propose that the controversial landmass is not Antarctica at all, but a distorted and misplaced representation of South America's eastern coast. They point to the map's other inaccuracies, arguing it is a composite of sailors' tales, guesswork, and fragmented Portuguese and Spanish charts. The theory suggests that the coastline in question is simply Patagonia, stretched and bent to fit the confines of the parchment. This is a reasonable argument, yet it struggles to account for the specific geographical details. When you place a tracing of the Peru southern landmass over a modern satellite image of Antarctica, the correlation becomes unnerving. The contours of the Queen Maud Land region align with the map's depiction in a way that feels less like a lucky guess and more like a direct tracing from a source that saw the continent ice-free. This single piece of parchment forces a profound question. Could an advanced prehistoric civilization have explored the entire globe, mapping coastlines with an accuracy that would not be matched for thousands of years? The idea of such a lost seafaring culture, whose maps later fell into the hands of medieval cartographers, would rewrite our entire understanding of human exploration. Perhaps this was not the work of aliens or gods, but of human ingenuity that flourished and then vanished, leaving only a few fragmented copies of its knowledge behind. The Peru map is a ghost in the archives, a whisper of a world that might have been known long before we ever believed it was found. High on a plateau overlooking the ancient city of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman presents a puzzle built from stone. Its walls are composed of colossal limestone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, each one a unique, irregular polygon. These stones are not held together by mortar, yet they fit together so perfectly that the seams between them are virtually invisible. You cannot slide a razor blade or even a piece of paper into the cracks. This is not simple masonry. It is a three-dimensional stone jigsaw puzzle executed on a gargantuan scale. The question is not just how they carved these behemoths, but how they assembled them with such impossible, laser-like precision. The Inca did not have the wheel, iron tools, or even a written language to blueprint their designs. They had only stone hammers, bronze chisels, sand, water, and an unimaginable reserve of patience. The conventional explanation involves generations of laborers patiently pounding one rock against another, using abrasive sand and water to slowly grind the surfaces down. They might have created wooden molds to transfer the complex shape of one stone onto the face of another, then painstakingly chiseled for months until the fit was flawless. Moving these stones was a feat of pure logistics and muscle. The quarries were miles away across rugged mountain terrain. The most accepted theory involves thousands of men pulling the stones on log rollers, using ropes made from leather and plant fibers, inching each block into place over years of backbreaking effort. Yet, this practical explanation struggles to account for the sheer perfection of the final product. This gap has given rise to more extraordinary theories. One persistent legend speaks of a lost plant extract, a liquid that could temporarily soften stone, allowing workers to mold the granite like clay before it hardened again into its eternal form. Another, even more captivating idea involves the power of sound. Oral traditions hint that the Inca priests knew certain acoustic frequencies that could negate gravity, levitating the massive blocks into position with resonant chants and vibrations. Imagine the scene, the air humming with a powerful, low drone as 100-ton stone slowly rises from the ground and floats gently into its waiting slot. While there is no scientific proof for such methods, the idea speaks to the profound and seemingly magical accomplishment on display. To truly appreciate the genius of this construction, picture a time-lapse sequence showing the walls rising. You would see each uniquely shaped stone, like a giant's puzzle piece, being maneuvered into a space that seems too small for it. Then, with a final push, it sinks into place, locking seamlessly with its neighbors on all sides. A CGI reconstruction could visualize the possible techniques, showing teams of workers with ropes and levers, guided by master architects who could visualize the final, interlocking structure in their mind. The result is a wall that has withstood centuries of earthquakes that have leveled modern buildings all around it. The interlocking blocks, without rigid mortar, simply shuffle and settle during a tremor, then lock back into place when the shaking stops. This was not just a fortress, it was a perfect marriage of art, engineering, and a deep understanding of the natural world. What profound knowledge of geometry and physics did these builders possess? Knowledge that was passed down through demonstration and song, but never written in a book. The walls of Sacsayhuaman stand as their only testament, a silent, enduring riddle carved in stone. Far out in the Pacific Ocean, on the remote and windswept Easter Island, another language of stone and wood awaits a translator. This is the Rongorongo script, a system of hieroglyphic glyphs carved meticulously onto wooden tablets. It is the only indigenous written language ever discovered in the vast expanse of Oceania, a singular and profound mystery from one of the world's most isolated cultures. The glyphs themselves are a beautiful and complex puzzle, featuring repeating sequences of stylized figures, including human forms, birds, fish, and intricate celestial symbols. One of the most prevalent motifs is that of the birdman, a being with a human body and the head of a frigate bird, a central figure in the island's later religious cult. These tablets could very well hold the first-hand account of the island's dramatic and tragic history, a story of ecological collapse and societal turmoil told by the very people who lived through it. The central tragedy of Rongorongo is that the key to understanding it was lost just as the outside world arrived. The last known practitioners of this script, the wise men who could read the chants and histories, were among the thousands who perished due to disease, slave raids, and famine in the 19th century. By the time the first missionaries and ethnographers took a serious interest in the tablets, there was no one left to read them aloud. The knowledge died with its keepers, leaving behind the physical script but extinguishing its meaning. This has not stopped decades of determined effort to crack the code. Linguists have tried to link the symbols to the oral traditions and the Polynesian language still spoken on the island, searching for a Rosetta Stone that connects a specific glyph to a known word or concept. Others have pursued more speculative connections, noting visual similarities between Rongorongo and the ancient, equally undeciphered Indus Valley script from the other side of the world, though no genetic or historical link has ever been proven. The fundamental challenge is that we do not even know what kind of writing system it is. Are these glyphs logograms where each symbol represents an entire word? Are they syllabic, representing sounds? Or are they a form of proto-writing, a memory aid for reciting lengthy ritual chants that would have been memorized verbatim? Without this basic understanding, every attempt at translation is a shot in the dark. Close up, the tablets reveal the incredible care of their creators. The glyphs are not scratched but cleanly incised with a sharp shark's tooth or obsidian flake, each line flowing into the next in a continuous Boustrophedon pattern, meaning the writing turns back on itself at the end of each line like an ox plowing a field. You can almost feel the importance of the message, the desperate need to preserve something vital for future generations. What story do these wooden pages tell? Do they contain genealogies of great chiefs or navigational charts for voyages across the open sea? Do they record the creation myths of the people who raised the great Moai statues, or do they document the island's slow, terrifying descent into crisis as resources vanished and society fractured? The silence of the Rongorongo script is a profound one, the silence of an entire library where every book is locked and the last librarian is gone. A single piece of linen cloth holds the ghostly imprint of a human form, a mystery that has divided science and faith for centuries. This is the Shroud of Turin, a 14-foot-long sheet that bears the faint, straw-colored image of a man who appears to have suffered crucifixion. The wounds are chillingly specific, from the scourge marks on his back to the puncture in his wrist and the gash in his side, all corresponding with the biblical account of the Passion of Jesus Christ. For millions of the faithful, this is not a riddle but a relic, the actual burial cloth that wrapped the body of Christ after his descent from the cross. For others, it is history's most complex and enduring forgery. The debate hinges on two unanswerable questions: when was it made, and how was the image created? In 1988, science delivered what seemed to be the final word. With permission from the Vatican, tiny samples were cut from a corner of the shroud and sent to 3 independent laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Tucson for radiocarbon dating. This process measures the decay of a radioactive isotope of carbon, carbon-14, which all living things absorb from the atmosphere. When an organism dies, it stops absorbing carbon-14, and the existing amount decays at a steady, measurable rate. By calculating how much carbon-14 remains in a sample, scientists can estimate its age. The results from all 3 labs were unanimous. The flax plants used to weave the linen had been harvested sometime between the years 1260 and 1390. This placed the shroud's origin firmly in the medieval period, a time when forged religious relics were notoriously common. The case appeared closed, a medieval fake. Yet the story did not end there. Almost immediately, researchers raised compelling objections. They argued that the sample taken from the shroud's edge was not representative of the whole cloth. This corner had been handled for centuries, potentially contaminated by oils from human hands, soot from a church fire in 1532, and even microbial growth, all of which could have skewed the carbon dating results, making the linen appear younger than it truly was. Some textile experts also pointed to weaving techniques that more closely resembled those from the 1st century Middle East than from medieval Europe. The scientific verdict, rather than settling the matter, only ignited a fiercer debate. Even more baffling than its age is the image itself. How was this faint, photographic negative of a man transferred onto the cloth? It is not a painting, as no pigments or brush strokes have been found. It is not a scorch, as the color change only affects the very topmost microfibers of the thread. The image has a 3-dimensional quality, as if the intensity of the stain encodes distance from the body, a property no known artist could have conceived of, let alone executed, centuries before the invention of photography. One of the most dramatic theories suggests a sudden, catastrophic burst of radiation, a flash of light from the body at the moment of resurrection that somehow burned the image onto the surrounding linen. Others propose a natural chemical reaction between amines, gases released from a decomposing body, and the carbohydrates on the cloth's surface. But no laboratory experiment has ever perfectly replicated the shroud's unique combination of superficial coloring, perfect anatomical accuracy, and absence of any directional flow that would indicate a liquid medium. High-resolution analysis reveals the image is a puzzle at the microscopic level, a mystery of physics and chemistry that continues to resist explanation. To stand before the shroud is to stand at a crossroads between belief and evidence. For skeptics, it is a powerful medieval artwork, a testament to human ingenuity in creating the inexplicable. For believers, it is a divine sign, a tangible connection to a foundational moment of their faith. The cloth forces a profound question: can an object be scientifically inexplicable and yet spiritually true? It remains an enigma wrapped in faith, a silent witness to an event that, for better or worse, we may never prove or disprove. Scattered across the rolling hills of Laos are thousands of colossal stone jars, standing like silent, weathered sentinels. These massive vessels, carved from solid rock, range in size from large enough to hold a person to over 3 meters tall and weighing several tons each. They cluster in groups across the Xingquang Plateau, an entire landscape transformed into a cryptic graveyard of stone. Their sheer number and scale are staggering, a monumental undertaking whose purpose has been erased by time. The most widely accepted theory points to a complex funerary practice. Archaeologists have uncovered human remains, burial goods, and ceramic pots around the jars, suggesting they were part of an ancient excarnation ritual. The dead may have been placed inside the massive jars to decompose, their bones later cleaned and buried, or the vessels might have served as grand receptacles for the ashes of the cremated, safeguarding their journey into the afterlife. This practical explanation, however, is far from the only story whispered on the plateau. Local legend tells of a much older, more fantastic origin. The stories speak of a race of giants, the Kunchim, who once ruled this land. Their king, it is said, commissioned the jars to brew a colossal quantity of rice wine, a celebratory feast to mark a great military victory over a rival. In this tale, the jars are not tombs, but the brewing vats of mythical beings, a poetic explanation that adds a layer of magic to the archaeological mystery. Imagine aerial footage sweeping over the sites at dawn, the morning mist weaving between the ancient stone forms, casting long, dancing shadows. Maps would reveal the jars are not randomly placed, but form distinct clusters, hinting at a social or territorial organization we can no longer decipher. Were these the burial grounds for specific clans or way stations on a spiritual journey? The stone jars offer no answers, only their enduring, enigmatic presence, a silent question carved from the very earth. Deep within a dark chamber of the Egyptian temple of Hathor at Dendera, a stone carving ignites a modern war of interpretation. A strange, writhing form is enclosed in what looks like a giant, transparent bulb, which is itself supported by a pillar and connected to a box by a cable that ends in a two-headed snake. To many, this is the Dendera light, a clear and undeniable depiction of ancient electrical technology, a light bulb from the age of the pharaohs. The parallels are startlingly specific. The bulb-like enclosure, the snake-like filament inside, the cable, and the box that could be a power source or battery, it all seems to form a circuit. Proponents of this theory ask a compelling question. How else could the Egyptians have illuminated the deep, windowless interiors of their tombs and temples, places where soot from torches has never been found? The idea suggests a lost chapter in human innovation, a spark of genius that flickered out and was forgotten. Yet mainstream Egyptology offers a very different and deeply symbolic reading of the exact same image. They argue that what we are seeing is not a light bulb, but a profound religious metaphor. The bulb is actually a lotus flower, a sacred symbol of creation in Egyptian mythology. Emerging from the lotus is not a filament, but a snake representing the god Harsomptus, a form of the deity Horus. The entire scene is bursting from a jed pillar, a powerful emblem of stability and the backbone of the god Osiris. So, this is not a technical diagram, but a spiritual one, illustrating the moment of cosmic creation, the snake god being born from the primordial lotus, which is itself supported by the stability of the cosmos. To see it as the Egyptians might have, you have to look at it side by side with other, undisputed religious carvings from the same temple complex. The artistic style is consistent. The symbolism is part of a well-documented visual language. The so-called cable is a common motif representing a rope, and the two-headed snake is a known religious symbol. The box at the end is likely a ceremonial shrine or a container for a sacred statue. This established interpretation is rooted in decades of scholarship translating hieroglyphic texts and comparing thousands of artifacts. So why does the electrical theory persist with such strength? It speaks to our desire to see our own technological reflection in the past, to find proof that ancient wisdom was even more advanced than we realized. It is a captivating story, but one that requires ignoring the cultural and religious context that surrounds the carving. The debate itself becomes a different kind of riddle, a question about how we choose to see history. Do we project our own world onto the past, or do we strive to understand it on its own terms, in its own complex and symbolic language? The carving on the wall at Decoded does not change, but our perception of it reveals just as much about us as it does about the ancient Egyptians. In the quiet Georgia countryside stood a monument not to the past but to the future. Erected in 1980, the Georgia Guidestones were a set of massive granite slabs, arranged with astronomical precision and inscribed with 10 directives for humanity. These guides were carved in 8 modern languages and 4 ancient scripts, from Babylonian cuneiform to classical Greek, as if speaking to both the present and the echoes of civilizations long gone. The messages themselves were stark and provocative. They called for maintaining humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, for guiding reproduction wisely, for unifying humanity with a new global language, and for tempering faith and passion with reason. This was not a relic from a forgotten age, but a modern-day riddle, purpose-built and left for us to decipher. The entire project was shrouded in secrecy, commissioned by a man who identified himself only as R.C. Christian, a name universally understood to be a pseudonym. He worked through intermediaries and a local bank, leaving no trail, his true identity and motives sealed forever behind a wall of anonymity. Who was this person or group who funded this massive granite message? Were they a council of enlightened visionaries or something far more ominous? The ambiguity fueled decades of intense speculation. To some, the Guidestones were a benevolent, almost desperate blueprint for survival. In a world teetering on the brink of ecological collapse and nuclear war, these 10 guides were a set of simple, rational rules for rebuilding a sustainable society from the ashes of a potential apocalypse. The astronomical alignments built into the monument, with slots and holes that tracked the sun and stars, suggested a deep concern for cosmic cycles and a return to natural order. For these interpreters, R.C. Christian was a well-intentioned futurist, a modern-day prophet in stone. Yet to others, the same words carried a chilling, sinister weight. The call to reduce the global population to under 500 million sounded less like an ecological ideal and more like a genocidal mandate. The idea of a single global language and a world court evoked fears of a tyrannical new world order, a centralized power intent on erasing national borders and individual freedoms. The Guidestones became a lightning rod for conspiracy theories, a physical rallying point for those who saw a dark and controlled future etched into its cold granite face. This polarization ultimately sealed the monument's fate. The Guidestones, intended to stand for millennia, survived only 4 decades. In July of 2022, an explosion badly damaged one of the massive slabs, a deliberate act that led authorities to dismantle the entire structure for safety. The site now stands empty, the stones removed, leaving only the concrete foundation as a ghostly outline. You can see the stark contrast in footage, from the imposing, cryptic pillars under the wide Georgia sky to the scarred and vacant lot after the blast. The physical object is gone, but the riddle it presented remains more potent than ever. Was it a warning we failed to heed, or a threat we successfully averted? The empty space where the stones once stood is now a different kind of monument, one not to answers, but to the enduring power of a question. An entire civilization's ambition lies scattered across a remote Pacific island. The Moai of Easter Island are far more than just stoic heads gazing inland. These are complete figures, many weighing over 80 tons, that were somehow transported up to 11 miles across rugged terrain. The central mystery is not just their creation, but their journey. How did a people without the wheel or draft animals move these stone giants? One of the most compelling theories suggests the statues themselves walk. Using nothing but strong ropes and coordinated teams, the Rapa Nui could have rocked the Moai from side to side, inching them forward in a rhythmic, upright gait. Experimental archaeology has shown this method is possible with smaller replicas, creating a powerful visual of these colossal figures seeming to stroll across the landscape. Yet, this walking theory is hotly debated, with critics pointing to the immense stress it would place on the statues' bases, potentially causing them to snap. A more conventional explanation involves a combination of log sledges and rollers. This method would require a V-shaped sled gliding on a path of lubricated logs, with teams pulling the massive weight forward. This practical approach, however, demands a resource the island famously lost: wood. The island was once covered in a lush palm forest, and its systematic deforestation is deeply intertwined with the Moai story. Every transported statue would have consumed vast quantities of timber for sledges, rollers, and levers. The relentless demand for moving these monuments, combined with land clearing for agriculture, likely stripped the island bare. This ecological catastrophe would have triggered soil erosion, crippled fishing canoe construction, and ultimately led to famine, warfare, and a dramatic population collapse. The very act of honoring their ancestors may have inadvertently doomed their society. This raises the deeper question of the Moai's purpose. They are widely believed to be deified ancestors, massive stone representations of powerful chiefs who are thought to channel spiritual power or mana to protect their descendants. Erected on sacred platforms called ahu along the coast, they were the focal point of a complex ancestor worship cult, their backs to the sea as they watch over the villages. This profound cultural drive explains the staggering scale of the operation, but it does not explain why the work stopped so abruptly. The Rono Raraku quarry is a haunting time capsule, with nearly half of all the Moai ever carved still lying there in various stages of completion. Some are barely outlined in the rock, while others are almost ready for their journey, attached only by a thin stone spine. It is as if the workers simply put down their tools one day and never returned. The most likely explanation is that the societal collapse fueled by the environmental crisis reached a point where the resources and social organization needed for such monumental projects vanished. The old beliefs and the power of the chiefs who commissioned the statues may have crumbled along with the ecosystem. Visualize the quarry as it must have looked at its peak, teams of carvers working in unison, the air filled with the sound of stone striking stone. Then picture the slow, arduous journey of a finished Moai, a procession of hundreds heaving and rocking the giant across the island. Finally, imagine the silence that eventually fell, leaving hundreds of unfinished giants to slumber in the hills, a permanent monument to both human ambition and its ultimate limits. What final event caused the last worker to walk away, leaving his nearly finished ancestor to the elements for all eternity? The stone giants of Easter Island speak of a society pushing its limits, but another ancient wonder stands as a testament to precision on an almost unimaginable scale. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built from more than 2 million stone blocks, each weighing several tons, and yet its base is leveled to within less than an inch. Its 4 sides are aligned to the 4 cardinal directions with an error of just 1/15 of a degree, a feat of engineering that would challenge modern builders with laser levels and GPS. This was not a haphazard pile of rocks, it was a machine of perfect angles and celestial intent. So how was this colossal structure assembled over 4,500 years ago? The most enduring image is that of a massive, straight ramp built directly against the pyramid's face, growing in height as the structure rose. Thousands of workers would have dragged the enormous blocks up this earthen incline on wooden sledges. While this seems logical, the ramp itself would have required more material than the pyramid, a logistical nightmare to build and then dismantle. An alternative is the spiraling ramp, a single, winding roadway wrapping around the pyramid like a coiled snake. This would use far less material, but it creates its own problem. The sharp corners would have been impossible for the long sledges carrying the massive cornerstone blocks to navigate. A more recent and compelling theory comes from architect Jean-Pierre Houdin, who proposed an internal ramp. His idea suggests that the outer shell of the pyramid was built using a straight external ramp for the bottom third. For the upper two-thirds, the workers switched to a corkscrewing ramp built inside the pyramid structure, a hidden tunnel they used to transport the blocks upward. This internal ramp would have left the pyramid's exterior clear for the precise finishing work and solved the issue of maneuvering the heaviest stones. Just picture a detailed animation showing this process. You would see the external ramp being used for the massive base, then being deconstructed as the internal, spiraling corridor takes over, with teams of workers moving blocks in a continuous, upward spiral within the pyramid's own body. The sourcing of the materials was a monumental task in itself. The limestone casing stones were quarried locally, but the granite for the king's chamber, some pieces weighing up to 80 tons, was brought from over 500 miles away, likely floated on barges during the Nile's annual flood. Once on site, the stones were moved on sledges, perhaps over wet clay to reduce friction. The final placement, especially for the ceiling beams of the Grand Gallery, required a genius-level understanding of leverage and counterweights. This was more than brute force, it was a symphony of logistics, astronomy, and mathematics. The pyramid's alignment is so perfect it could not have been achieved by merely sighting the stars. The builders likely used the autumnal equinox, when day and night are of equal length, to trace a perfect east-west line by tracking the shadow of a rod. The entire structure is a map of the northern sky, with its air shafts precisely aligned to the stars of Orion's belt and the circumpolar stars that never set, connecting the pharaoh's soul directly to the eternal heavens. To see a diagram of these alignments is to understand that the pyramid was not just a tomb, but a gateway, a cosmic engine built with a knowledge we are still struggling to fully comprehend. What kind of mind could orchestrate such a project, coordinating tens of thousands of workers over decades to create a mountain of stone that still defies easy explanation? A different kind of disappearance unfolded on the foggy shores of the New World. In 1587, a group of about 115 English men, women, and children landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. Their governor, John White, returned to England for supplies, but his trip was delayed for 3 long years by war. When he finally sailed back to the colony in 1590, he found the settlement utterly abandoned. The houses were dismantled, the fort was empty, and there was no sign of a struggle or a grave. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post, Croatoan, and the letter 0 carved into a nearby tree. It was as if the entire community had simply vanished into the wilderness. What did this word mean? Was it a message, a warning, or a destination? The leading theory suggests the colonists, facing starvation and hostile neighbors, sought refuge with the Croatoan tribe, a friendly group who lived on a nearby island. The word carved on the post may have been their way of telling John White exactly where they had gone. But if they simply moved in with the Croatoan, why did they leave no other trace, and why were they never seen again by other English settlers? Other possibilities are far darker. Perhaps they were attacked by a different, less welcoming tribe, or by Spanish soldiers who saw the English colony as a threat to their own claims in the Americas. Another grim possibility is that they tried to build a ship and sail back to England themselves, only to be lost forever in the treacherous waters of the Atlantic. Modern science has tried to solve this cold case. Archaeologists have combed the soil of Roanoke and the surrounding areas, finding fragments of English pottery mixed with Native American artifacts, hints of a possible integration. Even more compelling are the DNA studies, where researchers have attempted to find genetic links between the lost colonists and present-day populations, searching for descendants among the Lumbee people of North Carolina. The results have been tantalizing but inconclusive, showing European ancestry that dates to the right period but lacking the definitive proof that would close the case. Imagine a dramatic reenactment of that final, desperate decision. The colonists, thin and weary, packing what little they have, looking out at the dense, unknown forest. One of them takes a knife and carves that one fateful word into the wood, a final act of faith that someone would come looking. Historians and archaeologists continue to piece together the puzzle, examining old maps and ship logs for any overlooked clue. The story of the lost colony endures not because it is unique, but because it is a perfect human mystery, a story of hope, desperation, and a single word that echoes across the centuries. What really happened after the carving was finished, and did any of them survive to tell a tale that was ultimately lost to time? Death Valley holds a riddle that moved on its own. Across the perfectly flat, dry expanse of racetrack playa, heavy rocks leave long, meandering trails in the cracked mud, as if they had casually gone for a stroll. For over a century, this was one of nature's most playful and baffling mysteries. How could stones weighing dozens of pounds travel hundreds of yards, carving elegant curves and straight lines into the landscape, with no human or animal to push them? The theories were as varied as the tracks themselves. Some suggested powerful dust devils lifting and dragging the rocks. Others proposed that the slippery clay surface became a temporary ice rink during rare winter conditions. But without any eyewitnesses, it was all just speculation. The silence of the playa guarded its secret. The breakthrough came from a patient, modern form of observation. Scientists equipped the area with time-lapse cameras and GPS units, settling in for a long watch. They finally captured the perfect combination of events in the winter of 2011. It requires a very specific recipe. First, a rare rain must fall, pooling on the hard-packed playa to create a shallow, temporary lake. Then, on a cold night, this thin sheet of water must freeze into vast panes of windowpane ice, but only a few millimeters thick. The following day, as the sun warms the ice, it begins to break apart into massive, floating sheets. Now, add the final ingredient, a light wind, just strong enough to catch these ice sheets. They glide across the water-lubricated mud, and any rock trapped within an ice raft is simply pushed along, scraping a trail into the soft sediment below. The movement is almost ghostly, a slow, graceful drift powered by nothing more than a gentle breeze and a sheet of ice. The mystery was solved, yet seeing the actual footage does not diminish the magic, it enhances it. The sight of these massive ice panels, like shards of broken glass, shoving boulders across a mirror-flat desert, is strangely beautiful. It is a perfect reminder that some of the greatest riddles are not locked in ancient tombs or carved on stone tablets, but are written in the mud and ice, waiting for the right moment to reveal their elegant, natural logic. What other simple, beautiful explanations are waiting out there, hidden in plain sight? A book exists so massive that it is said 2 people are needed to lift it. The Codex Gigas, or the Devil's Bible, is a 13th century manuscript weighing nearly 160 pounds, a behemoth of vellum whose creation is as mysterious as its contents. Legend claims a doomed monk, sentenced to be walled up alive for breaking his vows, promised to write the world's greatest book in a single night to atone for his sin. As midnight approached and the task proved impossible, he prayed not to God but to the fallen angel Lucifer, offering his soul in exchange for completion. The next morning, the book was finished, and the monk had included a chilling full-page portrait of the devil himself as a tribute to his otherworldly assistant. That haunting image remains, a striking, almost modern-looking depiction of a red Satan alone in a white void, his clawed hands raised, a powerful visual that fuels the dark legend. Yet the real mystery is not a demonic pact, but a feat of human endurance. Modern analysis of the handwriting and ink confirms that a single scribe did indeed write the entire text. This was not the work of a night, but an estimated 30 years of relentless, backbreaking labor. Imagine the physical toll, day after day, hunched over pages of calfskin, grinding ink, and meticulously forming each letter in a consistent hand. The monk's wrist must have ached, his eyes strained in the dim light, his entire life consumed by this one monumental task. Was this an act of profound penance, a self-imposed sentence to purify his soul through decades of devotion? Or was it an attempt to create a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, a complete library in a single volume that would ensure his name, though lost to us, would be remembered through his work? The contents of the codex are as puzzling as its origin. It bizarrely combines the complete Latin Vulgate Bible with the historical works of Josephus, medical texts by Constantine the African, and a collection of exorcism rituals. This is a jarring compilation, a sacred text sitting side by side with practical magic and secular history. Why bring these specific works together? It may have been intended as a universal encyclopedia for a monastery, containing everything from divine scripture to practical knowledge for healing the body and combating demons. The devil's portrait, placed opposite a magnificent rendering of the heavenly city, creates a dramatic tension between good and evil, a visual sermon meant to warn and inspire. To see high-resolution images of these pages is to witness the staggering scope of one person's life work, a testament to a will so powerful it spawned a legend of supernatural aid. What kind of person dedicates their entire existence to such a task, and what silence were they trying to fill with the rustle of every page? Deep beneath the quiet villages of Zhejiang province in China lies a subterranean world that defies all expectation. In 1992, a local farmer decided to pump the water out of a small, seemingly insignificant pond, only to reveal an opening to an immense hand-carved cavern. This was the first of the Longyu Caves, a sprawling complex of 24 gigantic grottos, each one an architectural marvel. Stepping inside is like entering an underground palace, with vast halls supported by massive, evenly spaced stone pillars, soaring ceilings, and walls covered from floor to ceiling in a uniform pattern of chisel marks. Every surface is a testament to an army of workers who, 2,000 years ago, excavated over 1 million cubic feet of stone with nothing more than hammers and chisels. The precision is breathtaking, with the angles of the walls, the slopes of the ceilings, and the placement of the pillars all executed with a master architect's eye. Yet for all this staggering effort, there is not a single historical document, poem, or local legend that mentions their construction. It is as if the work was done in absolute secrecy, and then the memory of it was utterly erased. What drove an ancient society to undertake such a colossal project, and why was its existence so carefully hidden? One theory posits that these were imperial tombs designed to house the bodies of emperors and their treasures for eternity. The grand scale and careful engineering would support this, yet not a single artifact, burial object, or even a fragment of bone has ever been found inside. Another idea suggests the caves were a massive mining operation, perhaps for a valuable mineral like pyrophyllite. But the interiors show no signs of mineral extraction. Instead, the walls are beautifully finished with their deliberate, decorative markings, a strange extravagance for a simple quarry. A more dramatic theory proposes the caves were a secret military base or a hidden refuge for a royal court during a time of upheaval, a place to wait out a war in safety. The caverns even feature carefully designed pools that collect groundwater, suggesting a plan for long-term habitation. but again, the total absence of any evidence of human settlement, from pottery shards to charcoal from ancient fires, makes this unlikely. The most profound clue is also the most mundane: the tool marks themselves. Drone footage flying through the echoing chambers reveals the true scale, the camera weaving between the colossal pillars that hold up the ceiling like the gods of the underworld. Close-up shots show that the chisel marks are not random, but form a consistent parallel pattern across every wall and column. This was not the work of haphazard digging, but a systematic, organized campaign directed by a powerful, centralized authority. The pattern itself may be the key, a kind of signature or a symbolic language we can no longer read. Why pour so much labor and resources into a project with no apparent practical use, and then abandon it so completely that not even a whisper of its story survived? The caves are a hollow monument, a beautiful, empty space that asks a deafening question. The silent, hollow chambers of the Longyu Caves give way to the sun-scorched sands of the Tarim Basin, where the desert yielded a different kind of secret entirely. Here, in the dry, salty earth of Western China, archaeologists uncovered mummies so perfectly preserved they seemed to be merely sleeping. Their skin was untouched by time, their clothing was vibrant and intact, and their faces were startling, with high-bridged noses, deep-set eyes, and hair that was often long, straight, and blonde. These were not the expected ancestors of modern East Asian peoples. These individuals, dating back 4,000 years to the Bronze Age, possessed distinctly Caucasian features, a fact that upended settled histories. Their very presence in this remote part of the world is a profound historical contradiction. For a long time, the narrative of ancient human movement was one of separate worlds, with East and West developing in isolation until the Silk Road connected them millennia later. The Tarim mummies stand as a silent rebuke to that idea. They prove that long before that famous network of trade routes, people from the West had not only traveled to the heart of Asia, but had settled, lived, and died there. The question of their origin became one of the hottest puzzles in archaeology. Were they lost traders from the Black Sea region, wandering herders from the steppes of Ukraine, or the vanguard of a forgotten migration? Science has stepped in with genetic analysis, but the answers it provides are as complex as the mystery itself. DNA studies reveal that these individuals were not a single, homogeneous group. Their ancestry is a mosaic, a deep genetic well drawing from ancient populations in Siberia and from ancient North Eurasians, with later influences from groups related to the peoples of South Asia. They were not recent migrants from Europe, but rather a deeply rooted, isolated population that had developed its own unique culture in the Tarim Basin for centuries. This makes their story even more compelling. They were not just visitors who passed through, they were an established society, a pocket of Western ancestry thriving in the eastern deserts. Their material culture only deepens the intrigue. The mummies were buried with felted and woven woolen clothing, including tall, pointed hats that are strikingly similar to those worn by Scythian cultures thousands of miles to the west. They had cheese placed in their burial baskets, evidence of sophisticated dairy husbandry. One famous mummy, known as the Beauty of Lulan, was buried with a winnowing basket, a simple tool that speaks to a life of agriculture and settlement. To see these artifacts is to look directly into a Bronze Age community, one that feels both familiar and utterly alien in its geographical context. Visualizing their potential journey is to trace lines across a map of Eurasia, not as a single arrow, but as a web of possible routes from the Caspian Sea, across the towering mountains, and into the waiting emptiness of the basin. So who were they, and what cataclysm or slow change led to their disappearance as a distinct people? Their DNA lives on in some modern populations, but their unique cultural identity vanished, absorbed by the waves of migration that followed. They are a ghostly fingerprint on the canvas of history, a people who challenge our simplest stories about the ancient world and force us to redraw the map of human connection, proving that the deserts have always held secrets far stranger than any fiction. A smooth, symmetrical hill rises from the Visoko Valley in Bosnia, a shape so perfect it seems to defy the randomness of nature. This is the heart of one of the 21st century's most contentious archaeological debates, the claim that this hill and several others nearby are actually the largest and oldest pyramids on Earth. The man behind this bold assertion is author Semir Osmanagic, who argues these are not hills at all, but colossal, man-made structures constructed by a lost civilization over 12,000 years ago. He points to the precise orientation of the so-called Pyramid of the Sun, with its sides perfectly aligned to the cardinal directions, and to surface stones with what appear to be man-made, concrete-like binders. For the proponents, this is a discovery that would rewrite human history, placing a sophisticated pyramid-building culture in the heart of Europe millennia before the Egyptians. Satellite imagery is used to showcase the striking geometric shape of the hills, and excavations have revealed a network of underground tunnels, which supporters claim are part of the complex. The allure is powerful, offering a dramatic, alternative history that instills a deep sense of national pride and ancient importance. Yet, the response from the global scientific community has been a nearly unified chorus of dissent. Geologists from across Europe have examined the site and concluded that the hills are entirely natural. They are a common geological formation known as flatirons, created by the natural erosion of sedimentary rock layers, which often produces strikingly symmetrical, pyramid-like shapes. The stone blocks cited as evidence are identified as natural sandstone conglomerate that fractures into rectangular shapes, a process seen in many other parts of the world. The concrete-like material is explained as ancient, naturally occurring cement that can form between sedimentary layers. Mainstream archaeologists criticize the excavation methods, arguing that any man-made looking features are either natural or the result of later medieval or Roman activity on the hilltops, not evidence of a prehistoric pyramid. They see the project as a case of pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns like pyramids in natural landscapes. So why does the theory persist with such fervor, despite the overwhelming scientific evidence against it? The answer lies in a potent mix of nationalism and the deep human desire for a grand, forgotten past. For many Bosnians, the idea of hosting the world's first pyramids is a source of immense cultural pride, a symbol of a glorious heritage that stands against a narrative of recent conflict. It attracts tourists and investment to the region, creating a powerful economic incentive. The ongoing excavations, funded through private donations and volunteer labor, continue to produce finds that proponents interpret as confirmation, from shaped stones to mysterious energy fields they claim emanate from the structures. To present a balanced investigation, you would need to hear from both sides. On one, Semir Osmanagic, passionate and unwavering, guiding you through tunnels he believes are ancient corridors. On the other, a skeptical geologist standing on the same hill, pointing to the bedrock and explaining the slow, magnificent forces of geology that created it. The Bosnian pyramid controversy is less a riddle of the ancient world and more a riddle of the modern human heart. It asks us what we choose to believe when the line between a natural wonder and a human masterpiece becomes blurred by our own deepest hopes for the past. A perfectly sound ship drifted silently in the calm Atlantic, its sails partially set and its lifeboat missing. This was the scene that greeted the crew of the Dei Gratia on that December afternoon in 1872. The vessel was the Mary Celeste, an American merchant brig discovered sailing herself between the Azores and the coast of Portugal. When the boarding party climbed aboard, they stepped into a ghost story. The ship was seaworthy, with a 6-month supply of food and water in the stores. The crew's personal belongings were untouched, and a chart was still open on the captain's desk. Yet not a single soul remained on board. The last entry in the ship's log was from 10 days prior, and it noted nothing out of the ordinary. It was as if the captain, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and the 7 crewmen had simply evaporated into the salt air. The only clues were a missing lifeboat, a sword found neatly placed under a berth, and several feet of water in the hold, though not nearly enough to threaten the ship. The profound and unsettling normality of the scene was the heart of the mystery. There was no sign of a struggle, no evidence of violence, and no clear reason for such a desperate abandonment. One of the most enduring theories involves the ship's cargo, which was 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. Investigators have suggested that some of the barrels may have leaked, filling the hold with potent fumes. Perhaps the captain, fearing an imminent explosion, ordered everyone into the lifeboat as a temporary precaution, keeping it tethered to the slow-moving brig. A sudden gust of wind could have then snapped the tow line, leaving the lifeboat adrift and the Mary Celeste to sail on without them, dooming all aboard the small boat to the mercy of the open ocean. Another idea points to a natural phenomenon like a waterspout. A small, localized tornado at sea could have struck the ship, creating a terrifying noise and perhaps briefly making the vessel appear to be sinking, triggering a panicked, rash decision to abandon a perfectly sound ship. The more sinister theories of piracy or mutiny hold less water upon closer inspection. The crew's valuables were still in their quarters and the ship's manifest and cargo were intact. A mutiny would have left traces of conflict, and pirates would have certainly taken anything of value. The single sword was clean and showed no signs of being used as a weapon. Imagine a dramatic reenactment of that final, fateful moment. The crew, perhaps roused from their duties by a strange sound or smell, gathers at the rail. The captain makes a quick, catastrophic calculation, believing the ship is lost. They lower the lifeboat into a deceptively calm sea, clinging to the safety line as the Mary Celeste drifts just ahead. Then the line parts, and in a horrifying instant, the gap between the lifeboat and their only real hope for survival begins to widen irreversibly. Diagrams could illustrate each theory, from the buildup of alcohol vapor to the path of a hypothetical waterspout, but none can capture the human desperation of that choice. The sea gave up the ship but never its secret, leaving the Mary Celeste to forever sail through history as a vessel manned only by questions. Another clay disc, this one small enough to hold in your hand, carries a message from a lost world. Unearthed in the Minoan palace of Phaistos on the island of Crete, this fired clay artifact is imprinted on both sides with a spiraling sequence of symbols. There are men walking and heads with feathered headdresses, shields and bees, ships and flowers, all arranged in a tight clockwise coil. This is the Phaistos disc, and it is one of archaeology's most perfect and frustrating dead ends. The fundamental problem is its utter uniqueness. It is what linguists call a hapax legomenon, a one-off. No other example of this specific script has ever been found anywhere in the world. Without another text to compare it to, without a bilingual key like the Rosetta Stone, the symbols remain a locked door. For over a century, the world's best codebreakers have tried to force that lock, and all have failed. They cannot even agree on a basic direction, debating whether the spiral should be read from the outside in or the inside out. Some argue the symbols represent syllables of an early Greek dialect, forming a hymn to a mother goddess. Others believe the pictograms tell the story of a naval expedition or a heroic quest. There is even a theory that it is not a language at all, but an ancient board game, its spiral path a course for pieces to follow. Imagine a rotating animation of the disc, each mysterious symbol coming into focus one by one, a beautiful gallery of meaning without a translation. The very method of its creation is a puzzle in itself. Each symbol was not carved by hand, but stamped into the soft clay with a pre-made seal, a technique that resembles modern printing. This means the Minoans possessed a set of reusable type over 3,000 years ago, a revolutionary concept that would not reappear until the invention of movable type in East Asia and Europe millennia later. So why was this technology, this brilliant idea, used only once? Was the disc a royal proclamation, a sacred text, or a personal letter? Did the person who held the seals perish before they could be used again? Or was the entire project an experiment that was ultimately abandoned? The disc sits in its museum case, a silent, self-contained universe of information. We can see every detail of its production. We can count its 241 symbols. We can study its 45 distinct pictograms, but we cannot hear the voice of the person who stamped it. What single important message was so vital that it required such a sophisticated and unique method to preserve it? Beneath the Kremlin's red brick walls and golden domes, a treasure of a different kind is said to sleep. This is the legend of the lost library of the Moscow Tsars, a collection so vast and precious it has been called the Russian Atlantis of knowledge. The story centers on Ivan the Terrible, a Tsar known for his brutal reign, but also for his profound intellect and insatiable appetite for books. According to chronicles from his time, Ivan inherited a magnificent collection of ancient Greek and Roman texts from his grandmother, Sophia Paleolog. These were not just any books, but scrolls and codices brought from Constantinople before its fall, rumored to include lost plays by Sophocles, unknown histories by Livy, and even original dialogues of Plato and Aristotle that have vanished from the rest of the world. Ivan, a scholar in his own right, was said to have greatly expanded this collection, amassing a library that would have rivaled the legendary Library of Alexandria. Yet after his death in 1584, the entire collection vanished from all historical records. The silence was absolute. The first major search began centuries later under Tsar Peter the Great, who was fascinated by the legend. He ordered secret excavations beneath the Kremlin, but the labyrinth of foundations and cellars yielded nothing. Then, in the 1930s, Stalin himself authorized a clandestine hunt for the library, even as his workers were constructing the Moscow metro directly beneath the fortress. The project was shrouded in such secrecy that rumors persist of workers stumbling upon sealed chambers, only to have them immediately closed off by the secret police. Over the years, amateur explorers and professional archaeologists have followed rumored maps and deciphered cryptic clues in medieval texts, pointing to a hidden network of tunnels and a specific underground hall known as the Chamber of Eerie. They have scanned the ground with radar and probed the walls with endoscopes, finding hollow spaces and ancient bricked-up archways that hint at hidden rooms. But the library itself remains elusive, its existence the greatest question of all. Many historians argue that the legend is a romantic conflation, a myth that has grown around several smaller, dispersed collections that were simply lost or destroyed over time. They point out that no definitive inventory from Ivan's own era has ever been found. The library, they suggest, is a ghost, a collective dream of what might have been. Yet the possibility is too compelling to dismiss. To imagine stumbling upon that chamber is to imagine rewriting history itself, recovering voices from the classical world that have been silent for 2 millennia. What profound wisdom, what lost stories of human triumph and failure might be waiting in the darkness just beyond the next brick wall? Life-sized skulls carved from flawless crystal have long whispered of lost worlds and psychic power. These artifacts, often attributed to ancient Mesoamerican masters, are polished to a supernatural perfection, their empty eyes seeming to hold secrets of Atlantis or prophecies from Mayan elders. For over a century, legends claimed they could reveal the future, heal the sick, or even store the knowledge of vanished civilizations. The most famous of these, the Mitchell-Hedges skull, came with a story straight from adventure fiction. Explorer F. Mitchell-Hedges claimed his daughter discovered it beneath a collapsed altar in a Belizean jungle temple in the 1920s, a narrative that perfectly framed it as a relic of a forgotten mystical people. The romantic tale was irresistible, cementing the skull's status as an object of ancient, enigmatic power. Yet the truth, uncovered by modern science, tells a very different story. When researchers subjected the most prominent crystal skulls to rigorous analysis, they found the legends shattered under the microscope. High-powered scanning electron microscopes revealed minute, parallel grooves on the quartz surface. These marks are the unmistakable signature of rotary wheels and polishing wheels, tools used by 19th-century European jewelers that were completely unavailable to pre-Columbian artisans. The ancient Maya and Aztecs carved hard stone with abrasives like sand and water, using hand-powered drills that leave a chaotic, irregular pattern. The clean, precise lines on the British Museum and Smithsonian skulls point directly to a modern workshop in Germany or France, not a jungle temple. Further geological analysis sealed the case. The type of quartz used in several skulls was traced to specific sources in Madagascar and Brazil, regions that had no known trade links with Mesoamerica in ancient times. The skulls were likely manufactured in the 1800s to feed a booming European fascination with the exotic and the occult, sold as authentic antiquities to wealthy collectors and museums eager to own a piece of the mysterious New World. So why does the myth of the ancient crystal skulls endure with such tenacity? The answer lies in the potent blend of storytelling and our own yearning for magic. Films like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull wrapped the artifacts in a new layer of cinematic legend, presenting them as extraterrestrial relics of immense power. This pop culture reinforcement gave the old tales a fresh, thrilling life. The skulls also tap into a universal human fascination with the human face, particularly the skull as a symbol of both mortality and hidden knowledge. Their flawless, hypnotic beauty transcends their debunked origins. Macro photography reveals the incredible skill it took to create them, even in the 19th century. The craftsmen who carved them possessed a deep understanding of crystal's natural structure, working against the grain to avoid shattering the entire piece. Each one is a masterpiece of patience and precision, a testament to human ingenuity, even if that ingenuity was employed in creating a clever forgery. They stand today not as portals to a lost world, but as mirrors reflecting our own endless desire to believe in the impossible, to find a little magic gleaming in the clear, cold depths of crystal. One conqueror's final command was not to expand his empire, but to vanish from it. The location of Genghis Khan's tomb is perhaps the greatest secret ever kept, a mystery guarded by geography, legend, and the sheer force of his will. According to the ancient accounts, his funeral procession was an instrument of absolute secrecy. The soldiers who escorted his body to its final resting place were said to have killed every single person and animal they encountered along the road, erasing any potential witness. Then, after the great Khan was laid to rest with unimaginable treasures, the legends say his followers went a step further to protect the site for eternity. They diverted the course of a river directly over his grave, allowing the water to flow across the burial mound, washing away all trace of its existence and sealing the emperor beneath a permanent flowing shield. The earth itself was commanded to forget. For 8 centuries, this has been the ultimate treasure hunt, the search for a prize that would rewrite history. The primary search area has long been focused on a remote and rugged region of Mongolia known as Ik-Korik, the Great Taboo. This was a sacred forbidden zone, off limits to all by imperial decree, a place where even today local herders speak of a deep spiritual prohibition against disturbing the land. Imagine the challenge for modern explorers. They are not just confronting a vast and hostile wilderness of sweeping steppes and jagged mountains, but also a powerful cultural belief that the founder's peace must not be broken. Modern technology has brought us closer than ever before. Expeditions have employed high-resolution satellite imagery to scan thousands of square miles for subtle, unnatural patterns in the terrain. Teams on the ground have used ground-penetrating radar to peer deep into the earth without digging, searching for the architectural echoes of a hidden tomb or the metallic signature of a buried hoard. These tools have identified several promising anomalies, potential man-made structures hidden in the landscape, but the final proof remains elusive. This search is fraught with profound ethical questions that go beyond mere archaeology. For the Mongolian people, Genghis Khan is not just a historical figure, but a national father and a near-divine ancestor. The idea of Western archaeologists digging up his bones is viewed by many as a profound desecration, the ultimate violation of a sacred trust. Researchers must navigate these powerful sensitivities, balancing the global hunger for historical discovery against the deep respect owed to a living culture and its spiritual traditions. Even if the tomb's precise location were confirmed tomorrow, should it be opened, what right do we have to disturb a silence that was so deliberately and violently imposed? The quest for the tomb forces us to confront why we search for such secrets. Is it for historical knowledge, for the treasure, or for the sheer triumph of solving an impossible puzzle? The rivers of Mongolia continue to flow, perhaps still guarding their secret, while the spirit of the great Khan challenges us from the past, testing whether our curiosity can ever be tempered by respect. The enigma of Genghis Khan's tomb is a secret buried by time and will, but a more contemporary cipher haunts the modern imagination with a different kind of silence. In the late 1960s and early 70s, the Zodiac Killer terrorized Northern California, and his reign of fear was punctuated by a series of coded messages sent to local newspapers. These ciphers were his chilling signature, a direct taunt to the police and the public, promising that the key to his identity was hidden within the symbols. Most of these codes, including his first 408-character cipher, were cracked relatively quickly by a remarkable husband and wife team of amateur codebreakers. But one message, known as the 340 cipher for its length, resisted every single effort. For 51 years, this grid of seemingly random characters stood as an impenetrable wall, a locked door that professional cryptographers and hobbyists alike battered themselves against without success. You can see the original publication, a grid of cryptic symbols that looks almost like an alien alphabet, a perfect visual representation of a mind that chose to communicate in riddles. The breakthrough finally came in December of 2020, not from an FBI lab, but from a team of 3 private citizens, a software developer, a mathematician, and a filmmaker who applied modern computing power to the decades-old puzzle. They developed a sophisticated algorithm to test millions of possible symbol substitutions, and it found the key that had eluded everyone for half a century. The decryption process is a fascinating puzzle in itself, a graphic sequence showing the chaotic symbols slowly resolving into letters, then into words, and finally into a complete, if bizarre, message. Yet, when the solution was revealed, the central mystery remained stubbornly intact. The decoded text was a rambling, nihilistic rant, speaking of killing people because it is more fun than killing wild game, and claiming that slaves in the afterlife would collect them. It was a glimpse into a twisted psyche, but it contained no name, no address, no concrete clue that could point a finger at a specific individual. The decryption was a monumental achievement, but it solved one riddle only to underscore a greater one. Why does this case and this killer hold such an enduring grip on the public? It is the combination of the unsolved and the unsolvable, the fact that he was likely an ordinary person hiding in plain sight, and the chilling, intellectual arrogance of his communications. He did not just kill, he engaged in a twisted game, and he invited the entire world to play. We broke his last major code, and yet he remains a ghost, a reminder that some puzzles are not about finding answers, but about living with the unsettling questions they leave behind. A brief, powerful signal from the void of space still haunts our search for cosmic companions. On an August evening in 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University was methodically scanning the sky when its computer registered an anomaly so significant that it overloaded the expected scale. The signal was a narrowband radio burst, precisely the kind scientists predicted an intelligent civilization would use to broadcast its existence. It lasted for a full 72 seconds, the exact duration it would take for the telescope's fixed dish to pass a single point in the sky, and then it vanished, never to be heard again. Days later, astronomer Jerry Amon was reviewing the computer printout, a long sheet of paper filled with columns of letters and numbers representing signal intensity. His eyes locked onto one specific sequence, 6EQUJ5. The alphanumeric code represented a signal that jumped in strength and then faded away, a perfect candidate for an artificial transmission. Stunned by the data, Amon took his red pen, circled the sequence, and wrote a single, powerful word in the margin. Wow! That single word, a spontaneous expression of pure astonishment, gave the signal its immortal name. For decades, researchers have tried to explain it away. One prominent theory suggested the signal was a reflection off a piece of space debris, or perhaps a clandestine military transmission. More recently, the focus turned to comets, with some proposing that hydrogen clouds surrounding two passing comets could have been the source. Yet each natural explanation has crumbled under scrutiny. The comets were not in the telescope's field of view at that precise moment, and no known celestial object or human technology matches the signal's unique and powerful profile. It came from a direction in the constellation Sagittarius where there is no star, at least none that we can see. Visualize the original printout, the red circle, a stark halo around the cryptic sequence 6EQUJ5, a message that feels like a single, ringing note played on a cosmic piano and then silenced forever. Animations can show the Big Ear telescope, a massive rectangular sheet of metal listening to the sky, as the invisible beam of the WOW signal sweeps across its surface for those 72 precious seconds. The enduring power of this enigma lies in its perfection and its elusiveness. It was everything we were looking for, and then it was gone. Projects like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, have scanned the same patch of sky thousands of times since, listening for a repeat performance that has never come. Was it a ghost in the machine, a fleeting natural phenomenon we still do not understand? Or was it a cosmic hello, a brief, intentional beacon from a distant star, a message that arrived only to leave us with the most profound of all unanswered questions? We shouted into the universe, and for one moment, it seems, someone or something might have shouted back. From the silent echo of the WOW signal to the ghostly imprint on the Shroud of Turin, we have journeyed through 30 of history's most stubborn enigmas. Each one stands as a monument to the limits of our knowledge, a testament to the countless stories that time has chosen to keep for itself. These riddles share a common, powerful thread, the unquenchable fire of human curiosity. It is this very drive that pushes us to decode the unreadable, to map the forgotten, and to listen for whispers in the cosmic dark. The fact that these puzzles remain unsolved is not a failure of our intellect, but a gift. It is what keeps the past from being a closed book, ensuring that history remains a living, breathing mystery, always ready to surprise us with a new clue or a fresh perspective. The greatest discoveries often begin not with an answer but with a question. Now the adventure turns to you. Which of these ancient secrets captures your imagination the most? Do you have a theory about the Voynich Manuscript's alien flora, or a hunch about the fate of the Roanoke colonists? Share your own favorite mystery and your boldest ideas in the comments below, and join our community of armchair detectives. If you enjoyed this journey to the edges of the known, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you do not miss our next exploration into the unexplained. As we leave these 30 riddles behind, we leave you with one final question to ponder. Which of these great mysteries do you believe will be the very next to surrender its secret to the